we have what we call Groundsel, and it's a member of the daisy family. It's quite common. It's quite common, and what you notice here is that it's quite colourful. I mean, it's got lovely yellow flowers. If the focus will get that right. Yes, and you can see the sepals quite nicely. See how they're got this nice black tip. And if I see if I can turn it over, and you can then see the yellow petals. Now, members of the daisy family, their petals don't. Oh, there's a aphid on there. Members of the daisy family, their petals are structured a little bit differently to other flowers, because what you might notice here, and I don't know if will it show it. Might need the hand lens to demonstrate this properly. Bear with me a second. Here we go. So I'm not quite sure what this is here, but looking at the flowers, so another thing that's you'll see just about all over the place is the common daisy. The name daisy means eye of the day, because one thing that these plants do at night is they supposedly close their petals and then open them again the next day. And you see what I was talking about earlier. I mean, this might be a slightly clearer example if I can just handle it right. See how the female parts in the middle are unopened, and you have all these things here. They look like petals, but they're actually what you call ligules, which are produced only by the florets on the very edge of the flower, and they refer to them as the petals as well, not just ligules but also rays. It's a little bit confusing because grasses also have a similar structure called ligules, which look a bit different to these. So what I now might do is, actually it might be better if I show you with the hand lens. So I don't know how well you can make this out, guys, but this is the general idea. So what I should be looking at here are the stamens of the male parts of the flower, and in the middle, unless I've got this backwards, difficult to tell, but I think the structures in the middle, I might need to look at this with the naked eye. Okay, difficult to tell, but I think the ones in the middle are definitely the female, whilst the male structures are more on the edge, and you can just make that out here. these sort of white stalk-like things. Another thing that's often quite useful when looking at plants is to check the stems, because some plants will have hairs and others will be what we call glabrous, they're hairless. So as you can see, this one is, they call them pubescent. That's the sort of botanical name for a plant that's hairy. It's pubescent. And you can see that it's got some nice little silvery hairs on the stem. If we want to trace it, I don't know if this one is the best example, but you can see here are the leaves, nice green, and they're also pubescent, and they narrow towards the end but broaden out into a little bit of a spatula. And it's also nice and hairy. Sometimes it's also a good idea to turn them over. But on saying that, you know, if you're going to go to a place where there's, you know, unfamiliar plants, have a bit of caution before handling them, because some plants, well, like thistles and nettles, of course, they're prickly and they can sting, but also things like giant hogweed, which thankfully we don't have any of that in our garden, but you know, touching that can cause a rash. But I can do a video about those another time and explain to you what these look like, and to avoid coming into contact with them as best you can, because it causes dermatitis. Again, they're not here. We'll discuss that in another video. Over here we have what I think is dandelion. Now dandelions are named because of their leaves. See how sharp and serrated their leaves are, and it's French for tooth of the lion, dent de lion, which is quite a clever way to remember them. This one hasn't got a flower, but you can see the rosette of leaves that it has and the point at which they all arise, and it would produce a yellow flower, and then when that's finished pollinating, it then turns into the little parachutes that you can take and then blow. It's quite good fun. I used to do it as a child. So grass is quite wet here. I think we'll move on a little bit. So by my trampoline we have cocksfoot. This grass here forms these. It's quite a big grass. It's quite green. But the main detail is the spikelets, these things here, which and the name cocksfoot comes from the arrangement of the spikelets, like so. The big one being like the main foot of the rooster, and then the little one being like the spur behind, and it's a very common grass. You can see the spikelets quite nicely. They're quite hairy. It's one that you'll see about in most grasslands. It's often quite dominant, especially on, you know, road verges and things like that. The only reason it's a fairly isolated clump here is because you know, we do mow this lawn about once a fortnight if it's dry, but it's a good one to watch out for. It's a good one to know. Another one that's also quite good to know is the sheep's fescue. This one here, I appreciate it's not the easiest thing to see because it's quite thin, but this is the general idea of what it looks like. It's a reddish purplish kind of thing. Appears to be very common. I mean, our lawn seems to be made up mostly of sheep's fescue. It's quite a thin, delicate grass, and it's probably one that you may well have seen, but it's, I mean, I certainly didn't know much about them until fairly recently. So, yeah, this is a good one to know, because you do see it quite a bit in different kinds of grassland. And I don't know how close it will allow me to go, but you can see these prickly bits coming off of it are called awns. It's like the kind of long spiky structures that you see growing off of barley. That's what they're called, awns. And also, some of you might know, if you like going in a camper van, the awning, which is basically just you know, the extension on the edge, which allows you to have a little bit of space in a tarpaulin tent-like structure. That's the same idea. The idea is that it's an extension, and it's a very thin grass. If I can, this black little structure here, if I can just zoom into that. Apologies for the camera work, it's sometimes not the best. These things are a little bit difficult to capture, but you can see that black bit. That's called a node, and I think that's basically just a growing point for the grass. As I say, I'm not the foremost expert on grasses, but I am trying to learn them all the same. And then down here, you can see this little structure here, I think is the sheath of the grass, and this is where the main stem grows up into the thin stem, and then the spikelets. And grasses tend to be wind pollinated because, you know, they don't have the most colourful of flowers. They're often very small, don't have any nectar, and the winds pollinate them. When the time is right, they just open their flowers, and they've got these feathery seeds, and then they just blow away, and that's how grass gets around, really. Again, there's more of it here. Yeah, there's more of it here. It's one of these ones that you'll probably see more of once you get your eye in for it. You'll be amazed just how common it is in some places. There's another lawn not far away from where I live, and it's not been cut very recently because, you know, with the virus on, they're probably not doing quite so much of that. And it's just remarkable to see how much sheep's fescue there is in there, along with other things like sweet vernal grass, some cocksfoot and perennial ryegrass. But we'll cover those another time, because I'm not sure if we have those in the garden.